Okay, so I've gone all the way around, and basically here is what I mean. I have a zigzag pattern right here. It's this going from this sort of direction, the slashes, and I always begin my stitch on the top and then go to the bottom, on the top and then go on the bottom. And on this side, I'm not sure if I'm able to show, but um, the stitching is so small because I'm doing it on the very edge of the bottom of the weave to the other weave, and so the stitch is like right in the middle, and it's so tiny it's hard to even see. So that's why I continue doing this type of stitch. But here's that stitch that I'm talking about. There is the little stitch right there. There is a little stitch. There it is. There it is. There it is. So it looks like a tiny dot. It's very, invisible. And I'm just, the only stitch you'll see from the top view is maybe these little dots, which are very small and insignificant. And you can decide whether you want to do um, the vertical stitch smaller when you're linking these weaves together, or you can do a bigger dash, but it really on the back side it'll look like a tiny dot. I hope this is somewhat clear, but basically if I flatten this out with my finger, it looks like a circle. And why the stitch has to be very close together? Well, because if you don't, then you'll have lumps and you'll have openings, little gaps in between the weaves, and it will look very messy. It won't look very put together. So you have to sew pretty close, about 2 millimeters, like I said, all the way around, doing the zigzag stitch, and I will continue going all the way to the center. And this is um, going to be the harder part, because as you get closer, the hair is going to get more easily tangled together, and this point, of course, is the most critical part of the whole entire set of hair that your doll will have. So I'm going to continue going to the top, and I will show you what to do there. Okay, so at this point I have done the stitch, and I've completely gone all the way to the very top, and this will happen where the weave eventually when you get to the very center, it'll like spring up just that little piece. That's fine because that's gonna actually be sewn against the weave. It'll be flat eventually, and you'll see what I mean. So basically you have to almost be like closing the weave without actually doing it. And what you can do is to make sure that you have a pretty um, accurate center point, I would stick a pencil, and if the pencil, if the point can go through the weave, then that's as long as I know that there's an opening, a very tiny opening, then that's where I stop, and I will just make a knot at the last stitch and cut this string, and I will show you the next step. Okay, I decided not to cut the string yet. It's still attached. But this is the front view. As you can see, the tracks are overlapping one another. On the back side, the track is practically on top of the other. They're not really overlapping. It feels completely flat, except that bit of center. So what I'm going to do is I cut about a half an inch, and this is going to be tucked through inside of the weave closure. So I'm going to cut it, and I will show you how to do that. So as you can see, I cut about half an inch, and at this point I tend to put a little bit of glue on the end, and that will cause this hair from coming out because it is the end part of the weave, and so it will help this from preventing it from running and coming apart. And also it when it becomes hard, it'll be easier to poke through the center of the weave. So I'm gonna go ahead and glue it and wait until it's become hard so I can poke through to the other side of the weave. Okay, so this is the front of the weave, and you can clearly see that there is a little tiny center, and I'm going to poke this weave, this end of the track, inside that hole, and you should be able to do so because you've glued this end point, and it'll be rough enough to protrude through the other side. So sometimes the hole might be a little bit too tight, so you can use an object like a pair of little scissors, or uh, sometimes I use a pin to poke it through, but this is okay. It did poke through all the way, and so I'm just gonna pull it through and make sure that the hair is still on the other side, because look, um, sometimes the hair, the weave, will poke through. I'm just going to make sure that all the hair is on the other opposite side. And well, this hair, there's only a couple of hairs that came out through, so I'm just gonna cut them, these hairs on the side. What you should only see is mostly the track and very little bit of the hair. And what I do is I make sure that the track is small enough so that it doesn't come out of the center. It has to be smaller than the center. So I will sew all the way along this track to keep it flat, and I will sew that and I will show you what I mean. Okay, so basically this part right here, this little curve, is the exposed weave that was from the bottom that I poked through to the back, and I just stitched it inside the perimeter of the first track. So I just stitched it down, and we are almost close. This is where the last stitch was, and I cut the string, and there is one last piece, and then this will be completely done. So I will show you how to do that part. So now this is another piece to this whole mess of a weave closure, and it's about an inch, maybe a little more, which is fine. The whole idea is that when I stitch the ends together like so, the diameter has to be smaller than the actual weave closure. So this is about nickel size, and the diameter of this weave is about a quarter size. So as you can see, it's starting to look very nice. It still needs a little more in the center, and so this part will be sewed on the side, and I will show you how that looks like. And this will be tucked again in the center to add a little more hair, and I will show you what it looks like. Okay, so here on the top, I sewed really big stitches. As you can see, this is the middle of the stitching, and I basically do it so that this part is, I don't overlap the weave. I just stitch it across so that this is flat, like joining a bridge. This is like a missing piece in the middle. I don't overlap it because I don't want this part to be bulky in any way. So that's why I had to stitch it quite a few times so that it is flatly joined. At this point, you can decide to put a drop of glue, but take in mind that you are going to stitch this onto the weave, so the glue will be hard and you won't be able to stitch on that part. So that's why I sewed it a lot of times on the two end points so that it's nice and flat and I don't have to waste the glue. And I will show you how to put this in. Okay, so basically I tied a knot around the hair, just one, to hold the hair together, along with the needle, and I'm going to poke the needle through the weave. Okay, so here is kind of the setup I have. That's the end of the weave, and this is the hair, and I'm poking it through the back side of the weave. Okay, so basically I have put the needle through, and I'm going to push and kind of tug so that the ends of the hair protrude out, and then the weave track will be in the back side where the rest of the weave track is. And I will show you what that looks like. Okay, so this might take a little while, so be patient. Make sure you don't break the string, because then you have to tie the string all over again. So basically I'm pushing this through, and this bit of hair that's here is going to go through the outside with the rest of the hair, and that track will move all the way to the center point. So I'm going to try to poke it through and just kind of tug back and forth, and then eventually it will go through the hole. Okay, so here's a loop. As you can see, it's starting to come out. So I'm just going to get my finger, and there it goes. See? Now it's out of the center. You are able to do this. And when I flip the back side, you will see that you have this small circle of the track. And I will basically sew this around the inside of the perimeter of the first track. And I will show you what that looks like. Okay, so now I have sewn that second small patch of hair all the way around in the center. It doesn't matter how you stitch as long as it's very tightly stitched onto the bottom. And this is just to add a little bit extra hair in the center, and it will look a lot nicer. Make sure that that small part that I cut has to be smaller than the perimeter of the first loop that you made. Like I said, this would be like a quarter size, and this is like a nickel size. So just as long as it's able to stay within the inside of the perimeter, that's fine, because you don't want it to be too large so that it comes out of this loop, or too big that if it comes to the edge, you'll have a huge bump on your doll's head. So that's why it has to stay within the inside of the diameter of this bigger first loop that we made. And so now I'm going to flip it over to the other side, and basically what I do, this is the part where you can part the hair, and you will use a flat iron to further flatten this area, because it will be bumpy because of the extra hair coming from the center of the head. But basically this is how it will look like on your doll's head. And you can see there's no way that you can tell where the weave is. There's my needle right there. But you can't tell where the weave is. So here I would part half of the hair this way and then half of the other hair the other direction. And when I place it on my doll's head, it'll be, halfway. This half of the hair will be on this side, and then the other half will be on the other side. So I'll get a flat iron, and I will press it down for a few seconds, and it will be completely flat. And then you can put glue on the center, and put a generous amount so that this diameter has to match the diameter on your doll's head, so that you don't have the doll have a bump in her head. Because if the center of your doll's head is too close together, and you put too much track, what will happen is the track that will be at the bottom of this weave closure will make it look like a bump, because there's already material under the doll's head. I don't know if that makes sense. Uh, Basically, the diameter, if it's too small because you put too much track, it will elevate the weave closure and it will look like your doll has a bump in her head. So make sure that the diameter of the weave closure matches the diameter of your doll's bald head, so that you prevent from having the doll have a bump on her head. Because like I said, if there's track in the center and you're going to put this on there, well then it's gonna make this weave closure look like it's a huge bump, and you want your doll's head to be a nice smooth round shape. So that's one very important thing to remember. And I will flat iron it and I will show you what it looks like. Okay, so I've turned my iron. I'm waiting for it to get warm, and I put a mid temperature. This one, I don't know, I think it goes from 1 through 22. I'll put it at a 10. Nice thing about this is that it won't burn, and I could hold on to the hair for a few seconds, which you cannot do with a regular doll. So if you ever want to consider doing this to your doll, I would really recommend it. You'll get a lot more hair. The hair, you can curl it, iron it, nothing will happen. Just make sure you check the degree temperature for the weave, so you know what's the range of heatness that you can apply to the hair. God knows what would happen if you go over that limit. But anyways, so I'm feeling it warm. I'm going to part the hair, and I will hold this exactly in the center of the weave closure. And that's about it. That's all you need to do. So there it is. I'm holding on to it for a few seconds in the center. And then what I'll do when I feel it's kind of flat but it has a wave to it, I'll just keep running the iron on that part and just mold it the way I want. And you mold it the way you want too. And basically I just want to part it the way it would look like on a doll. So I may put some hair right here at the, like 3/4, like half a moon, I guess, or yeah. So that this part is going to land on her face, this part with that part, and I'll put some hair in the middle here. So I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, so basically I think I'm done, and this is what it looks like. Pretty nice. And I will put on my doll so you can see what it looks like on her. Okay, so basically I don't really have a doll that I can show you that is bald that I could put the weave closure on. But basically this is what it would look like. It's kind of hard to show that, but basically, and you have to take in mind that the weave closure has, I mean the weave itself has a bunch of holes, so, and the light is coming through the holes, but basically this is what it'll look like on the doll's head. And I didn't flat iron it, you know, the way I normally would, but there's the center, and there's all the extra hair, and it will look very nice on her head. And it will look like this when you put it on your doll's head. Okay, so that's the end of my tutorial for weave closure. I will use this weave closure when I have another doll that I will put blonde hair. At the moment, I'm not thinking of putting any blonde hair on any of my dolls, so I will save this for future, maybe for Jubilee, who knows. And so that's what it looks like. Thank you for watching this very long tutorial, and hope you get the same results that I do. And thank you for watching. Bye.